The morning started like any other in Willowbrook Estates, with birds chirping and the distant hum of lawnmowers maintaining those perfectly manicured lawns. I was sipping my coffee on the front porch, reviewing some investment portfolios on my tablet, when I noticed her marching down the sidewalk. Karen Henderson, our HOA president, clipboard in hand, measuring tape swinging from her belt like a sheriff's badge. She'd been elected 6 months ago after promising to quote-unquote restore order to our community, and since then, she'd turned our peaceful neighborhood into her personal kingdom. Karen stopping at my driveway, "Excuse me." Her voice cut through the morning calm like nails on a chalkboard. "Your mailbox is exactly 1.5 inches too close to the sidewalk. According to HOA Regulation 7-4-3, all mailboxes must be precisely 18 inches from the concrete edge." She whipped out her measuring tape with the precision of a gunslinger, crouching down to demonstrate her point. I set down my tablet, watching her blonde bob bounce as she measured and remeasured, making dramatic notes on her clipboard. "Good morning to you too, Karen," I said calmly. "I'll look into adjusting it this weekend." She stood up, adjusting her oversized sunglasses that she wore even on cloudy days. "This weekend? No. You have 24 hours, or you'll be receiving a $50 fine." And frankly, she peered at my porch, "Those wind chimes are borderline noise violations. I'd remove them if I were you." Hey everyone, if you're enjoying this story about entitled HOA presidents getting what they deserve, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to Karen Eat World for more satisfying tales of Karens meeting their match. Ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. The wind chimes had been a gift from my late grandmother, hanging there peacefully for 5 years without a single complaint. But I simply nodded, making a mental note. "I'll review the HOA guidelines, Karen. Have a nice day." She huffed, clearly disappointed by my lack of reaction, and continued her patrol down the street, stopping to photograph Mrs. Chen's garden gnome that was apparently facing the wrong direction. That evening, I moved my mailbox exactly 18 inches from the sidewalk, using a laser measure I typically reserved for commercial real estate assessments. The next morning, Karen was back. "Karen, at my door at 7 a.m., your grass is 0.25 inches over the maximum height limit of 3 inches. She held up a ruler against my lawn like she was investigating a crime scene. "That's a $75 fine unless it's corrected by noon." I had my lawn service come immediately, trimming it to exactly 2.9 inches. But Karen wasn't satisfied with compliance, she wanted submission. The following week, she cited me for having my garbage cans visible from the street for quote-unquote 30 seconds longer than the collection window allowed. Then it was the basketball hoop in my driveway, which she claimed violated the Architectural Harmony Clause, despite 3 other houses having the same model. "Listen, Karen," I said during one of her visits, maintaining my professional composure. "I've corrected every single violation you've mentioned. Perhaps we could discuss what your actual concern is?" She clutched her clipboard tighter, her acrylic nails clicking against the metal clip. "My concern is maintaining property values and standards. People like you think rules don't apply to them. Well, I have news for you, mister. In this neighborhood, I am the law." The situation escalated when she started photographing my property daily, sometimes at 6 a.m., her camera flash visible through my home office window. She filed complaints about the color of my doormat, the angle of my porch light, and even the variety of grass in my backyard versus my front yard. Each citation came with increasing fines, and she'd changed the HOA meeting times repeatedly to prevent homeowner attendance when votes were taken on new regulations. One morning, I discovered she'd actually measured and marked my driveway with chalk, claiming my car was parked 3 inches too far to the left. That's when I decided enough was enough. I made a phone call to my attorney, James, who happened to specialize in property law and HOA disputes. "She's harassing you," James said after reviewing the stack of citations. "But knowing you, I assume you want to handle this more creatively than a simple lawsuit?" Indeed I did. I spent the next week researching, making phone calls, and reviewing county records. What I discovered was fascinating. Karen's property had an easement that nobody had exercised in 40 years, a detail buried in courthouse documents from 1982. Even more interesting was the fact that the original HOA charter contained provisions that had never been removed, just forgotten. I also learned that Karen had been citing people for violations while her own property had several technical infractions. Her fence was 0.05 inches over the height limit, something nobody would ever notice or care about, except someone playing by her rules. Her meticulously maintained rose garden actually extended 6 inches onto HOA common property. Small violations that any reasonable person would ignore, but Karen wasn't reasonable. The next HOA meeting was Karen's monthly power trip session. She stood at the podium in the community center, reading through her list of violations and proposed new regulations. "I'm proposing that all homes must have matching doorbell brands," she announced to the 12 residents who'd managed to attend. "It's about consistency and property values." I raised my hand. "I'd like to address the board about a serious matter." Karen's eyes narrowed. "You're not on the agenda." I stood up anyway, my lawyer's instincts kicking in from my years practicing before I shifted to investment management. According to the original HOA charter, any homeowner can raise concerns about board member compliance with regulations. I pulled out my phone, projecting documents onto the wall using the center system. "Karen, your property is currently in violation of 17 HOA regulations." The room gasped. Karen's face turned red. "That's ridiculous. My property is immaculate." I clicked to the next slide. "Your fence exceeds the height limit. Your roses encroach on common property. Your mailbox numbers are in Helvetica font, not the required Arial." "Should I continue?" She sputtered, but I wasn't done. "Furthermore, I've exercised the dormant easement on your property. As of this morning, I legally own the access rights to the strip of land that connects your driveway to the street." The color drained from her face. "You can't do that." "But I could, and I had. According to county records, the easement was never dissolved, just unused. I've filed all the necessary paperwork. Now, technically, every time you drive to or from your house, you're trespassing on my easement. But don't worry, I'm reasonable. You can use it, as long as you follow my conditions." I handed her a document. "You may only use the easement between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. No vehicles over 2 tons. No music playing in your car. The vehicle must be washed weekly. Oh, and the car color must complement the neighborhood aesthetic, so that lime green sedan of yours will need to be repainted in an approved shade from this list." But the masterpiece was yet to come. "One more thing, Karen. Remember when you successfully petitioned to change the neighborhood speed limit to 15 miles per hour for safety?" She nodded slowly. "Well, I purchased the empty lot at the neighborhood entrance, and I'm opening a driving school. Completely legal, commercially zoned. Students will be practicing 3-point turns and parallel parking from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. daily. Of course, they'll observe the 15-mile-per-hour limit you mandated." The room was dead silent. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "But you'll also have to follow my easement rules," I continued. "Which means you can't leave your driveway when students are practicing during your restricted hours. Oh, and I've also established a home business registry under Section 12 of the original charter." "Your unauthorized HOA office in your garage?" "That's a commercial operation requiring permits and inspections." "This is harassment," she shrieked. "I'll sue you." I smiled calmly. "Everything I've done is perfectly legal and within the rules you've been enforcing. I'm simply ensuring full compliance with all regulations, just as you've taught us is so important." The kicker came when I revealed the final component. "I've also discovered that according to the HOA's own bylaws, any board member with active violations cannot vote on regulations or issue citations. Your 17 violations mean every fine you've issued in the last 6 months is invalid and must be refunded with interest." I turned to the room. "I move for an immediate vote of no confidence in our president." The vote was unanimous. Karen stood there, gripping the podium, her carefully constructed kingdom crumbling around her. "But I've also started a petition," I added, pulling out one more document. 70% of homeowners have signed to have your repeated harassment investigated by the authorities. Measuring people's lawns at 6 a.m.? Photographing properties obsessively? That's stalking, Karen. 2 days later, I watched from my porch as the police arrived at Karen's house. She'd violated the easement agreement by trying to leave her driveway at 10 p.m. to avoid the driving school students. When the officer tried to explain she was trespassing on the easement outside permitted hours, she became belligerent, screaming about her rights as HOA president, a position she no longer held. They arrested her for trespassing and disturbing the peace. The second arrest came 3 days later. Despite being removed as HOA president, she tried to issue citations to homeowners, claiming the vote was illegal. She approached Mrs. Chen's house with her clipboard, measuring the garden gnome again. Mrs. Chen called 911, reporting harassment. When the police arrived, they found Karen had also vandalized my mailbox with spray paint, writing "tyrant" in bright red letters. The security footage from my doorbell camera, which was indeed a different brand than my neighbor's, captured everything perfectly. As they led her away in handcuffs for the second time that week, Karen screamed at me from across the street. "This isn't over. I know my rights. You can't do this to me. I was making this neighborhood better. I am the victim here." The officer guided her head down as she got into the patrol car, still ranting about property values and the proper height of grass. I stood on my perfectly measured porch, wind chimes tinkling softly in the breeze, and watched as the patrol car drove away at exactly 15 miles per hour past my new driving school, where 3 student drivers were practicing parallel parking. Karen's face pressed against the window, her eyes wide with the realization that every single move I'd made had been perfectly legal, using her own rules and obsessions against her. She'd created a world of petty regulations and vindictive enforcement, never imagining someone might have the resources, knowledge, and patience to turn that very system into her own personal prison. The look of complete defeat and understanding that washed over her face as the patrol car turned the corner was the last thing I saw, her mouth forming a silent no as she finally comprehended the permanent, inescapable trap she'd built for herself. Thank you so much for listening to this story of HOA justice served ice cold. If you enjoyed watching Karen's kingdom crumble, please hit that like button and subscribe to Karen Eat World for more stories of entitled people getting exactly what they deserve. Comment below if you've ever dealt with a nightmare HOA president, and don't forget to share this video with anyone who needs a reminder that karma always comes to collect. See you in the next video.